I was on my way to the meeting regarding my late husband's inheritance. When I got into the car, a homeless man ran up and shouted, "Ma'am, do not start that car, your daughter-in-law." My blood ran cold, but when I arrived at the meeting later, that leech fainted the moment she saw me. I was about to start the engine when I heard him. A heart-wrenching scream that cut through the morning like a knife. "Ma'am, do not start that car." My hands froze on the steering wheel. My heart pounded against my chest with such force I thought it would burst out. I turned my head and saw him, a dirty, disheveled man with torn clothes and greasy hair stuck to his forehead. He was running toward me with his arms outstretched, as if trying to stop a tragedy. "Your daughter-in-law was here last night." I felt the air escape my lungs. Sarah? My daughter-in-law Sarah had been near my car? In the early morning? The man slapped the window with open palms, leaving dirt stains on the glass. His eyes, sunken and red, looked at me with an urgency I could not ignore. It was not the look of a madman. It was the look of someone who had seen something terrible. "Do not start it, please. I saw what she did." I lowered the window just a few inches, my breathing ragged. What did you see?" I whispered. He took a step back, trembling. She and a man in a suit opened the hood. They had a small bag. I was there, on the corner. Nobody sees me, but I see everything. My fingers released the keys. They fell into my lap with a metallic clatter that sounded too loud in the silence that followed. Everything started to make sense in a horrible way. Michael, my husband, had died just 3 weeks ago. A massive heart attack, the doctors said. But I knew something didn't add up. Michael was strong. He took care of his health. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. And suddenly, he vanished in the hospital, surrounded only by Sarah, only by her. And now this man, this stranger living in the shadows of the city, was telling me that my daughter-in-law had touched my car in the middle of the night. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice still broken. He lowered his gaze. "Because your husband was good to me once. He gave me food when everyone else spit on me. And last night I dreamed of him. He told me to take care of you." My eyes filled with tears. Michael. Always so noble, always so generous. And now, even from wherever he was trying to protect me. I got out of the car with trembling legs. The morning sun hit my face, but I felt cold, a cold that came from deep inside. I walked to the front of the car. I opened the hood with clumsy hands, and what I saw took my breath away. A wire was cut. Not broken, cut. With precision. And next to the engine, hidden among the metal parts, was a small plastic bag with a clear liquid that smelled like gasoline. My entire body began to shake. If I had started that engine, if I had pressed the accelerator, everything would have exploded. I would have exploded. I let myself fall against the car, my knees weak and my vision blurred. Sarah wanted to kill me. My own daughter-in-law. The woman who hugged my son every night. The one who smiled at me at every family dinner. The one who called me Mom Emily with that sweet and fake voice. She had tried to murder me, and worst of all, I had to go to the notary office. That very morning. To the reading of Michael's will. She would be there, smiling, waiting, believing that I would never arrive. If this story hooked you from the first word, subscribe to this channel, Elderly Stories, to keep discovering life tales that will make you feel, reflect, and never forget. I slammed the hood shut, wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and looked at the man who had just saved my life. "What is your name?" I asked him. "Everyone calls me Skinny, ma'am." "Thank you, Skinny. Thank you for listening to Michael." I took out all the cash I had in my purse. It wasn't much, but it was something. I put it in his hands. "I will be back soon, and when I return, I want you to tell me everything you saw, every detail." He nodded, clutching the bills against his chest as if they were gold. I called a taxi. I was not going to risk my life in that car. Not yet. But as the taxi moved through the city streets, a cold, hard certainty settled in my chest. Sarah had made a mistake. She had underestimated me. She thought I was just an old widow, weak, easy to eliminate, but she was wrong. Because now I knew. And a woman who knows is dangerous. The notary office awaited me. My daughter-in-law awaited me. And I was going to walk through that door as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was already at war. And this time, I was not going to lose. The waiting room smelled of old paper and reheated coffee, beige walls, gold-framed paintings, mahogany desk. Everything seemed designed to give solemnity to the moment, but I didn't feel solemnity. I felt nausea. Sarah was already there when I arrived, sitting next to my son Daniel with her legs crossed and that perfect smile she always used as a mask. She wore a tight black dress, discreet but elegant. Hair pulled back in a low ponytail, pearl earrings, impeccable makeup, the perfect widow, or so she wanted to appear. When she saw me enter, her eyes opened just a split second more than normal. It was an almost imperceptible gesture, but I saw it. I saw the surprise. I saw the fear. She didn't expect me to arrive alive. "Mom!" Daniel stood up immediately and hugged me. His body was tense, heavy. My son had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. He had deep circles under his eyes, an unkempt beard, and when he pressed me against his chest, I felt him trembling. "My love," I whispered, rubbing his back. "I am here." Sarah also stood up. She walked toward me with measured, almost theatrical steps and hugged me with that fake warmth that already turned my stomach. "Mom Emily," she said with a soft voice, "it is so good you made it. We were worried." Her hands on my back were cold, her perfume too sweet, and when she pulled away, our eyes met for an instant too long. I didn't look away. She did. "Well, let's begin." Mr. Roberts, a man in his 60s with thick glasses and a blue tie, opened a leather folder on the desk. "I know this is a difficult time for the family, but it is necessary to fulfill the last wishes of Mr. Michael." Beside him, the young lawyer, Gerald Stone, took notes silently from the corner. I sat in front of the desk, Daniel to my right, Sarah to my left, so close I could hear her breathing. Mr. Roberts began to read. At first, everything seemed normal. The main house remained in my name, the personal bank accounts too. Some land out in the Midwest would be divided between Daniel and his sister Sophia, who lived in Seattle and couldn't come. But then came the part that made me feel as if the floor opened beneath my feet. And in accordance with the testamentary disposition modified on August 12th of last year. Mr. Roberts paused and looked at me over his glasses. Yes, the properties located downtown, the warehouse in the industrial district, and the apartment in the city center remain in the name of Mrs. Sarah Miller. Silence. A silence so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. "What?" My voice came out barely as a whisper. Mr. Roberts cleared his throat uncomfortably. "It was a modification made by Mr. Michael 3 months before his passing, signed before a notary. Here is the documentation." He pushed some papers toward me. My hands trembled so much I could barely hold them. There it was, Michael's signature, his name, the date. But something didn't add up. Michael would never have hidden something like this from me. He would never have left properties worth millions to Sarah without even mentioning it to me. We were a team. We always were. "Mom, Dad mentioned it to me," Daniel said softly. "Sarah had been a great support to him in the last few months. He wanted to secure our future." I turned to my son with a torn heart. "And you knew, and you didn't tell me anything?" Daniel lowered his gaze. "I didn't want to worry you. I thought Dad would tell you when the time was right." Sarah put her hand over Daniel's, a possessive gesture, marking territory. "Emily, I know this is a surprise," she said with that controlled, almost compassionate voice. "But Michael trusted me. He knew I would take care of Daniel, and of you too, of course." Her words were poison wrapped in velvet. I got up from the chair. My legs felt heavy as if I were carrying stones. I need air. I left the room before anyone could stop me. The hallway was narrow and cold. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to think. 3 properties, millions of dollars, in Sarah's name. And she had tried to kill me that same morning. Why? What more did she want? What more did she have left to take from me? The answer came clear, brutal. She wanted everything. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Sarah. She came out of the room with that unbreakable smile, as if nothing in the world could touch her. "Emily, I understand you are surprised, but this is what Michael wanted. We should respect his will, don't you think?" I stared at her fixedly. Every muscle in my body was tense. "Were you near my car last night?" Her smile faltered, only for a second, but it was enough. "What? No, why would I?" "Someone saw you." Her eyes hardened. The mask was beginning to crack. "I don't know what you are talking about, Emily. Maybe the stress is affecting you. You should rest." She turned around and went back to the room, leaving me alone in that frozen hallway. But something had changed in me. I was no longer afraid. I had clarity. Sarah had planned all this. She manipulated Michael. She forged documents. She tried to kill me. And now, in front of a notary, she was collecting her loot. But she made a mistake. She left me alive. And I was going to use every second I had left to unmask her betrayal, recover what was mine, and make her pay for what she did to Michael. I went back to the room. I sat down. I signed what I had to sign. But inside, the war had already begun, and this time I was going to fight until the end. The following days were a silent nightmare. I returned to my house, that house that Michael and I built together 30 years ago, and everything seemed different. The walls no longer protected me. The furniture, the paintings, the framed photos. Everything seemed to whisper the same question to me. What really happened? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bag of gasoline hidden in the engine. I saw Sarah's smile. I heard her sweet and poisonous voice. And then, the rumors began. It was at the market where I heard it for the first time. I had gone early to buy vegetables, trying to maintain some normality in my shattered life. Mrs. Miller, who sells fruits and vegetables at the corner stand, greeted me with that uncomfortable smile people put on when they don't know what to say. "Mrs. Emily, so good to see you. How are you?" "Here, Mrs. Miller," little by little. She nodded, but her gaze avoided mine. She arranged the tomatoes on the tray, nervous. "Listen, is it true that—" She stopped, swallowed saliva. "No, sorry, I shouldn't meddle." Something in my chest tightened. "What is true, Mrs. Miller?" She lowered her voice, leaning in barely closer. "They say that Mr. Michael didn't die of a heart attack. That something strange happened at the hospital." I froze. The bag of vegetables almost fell from my hands. "Who says that?" "It's just that—" "People talk, Mrs. Emily. They say your daughter-in-law went to the hospital every day, alone, and that the doctors never really knew how to explain what happened. Such a healthy man, just like that." She made a gesture with her hand, as if something vanished into thin air. I didn't answer her. I paid, took my things, and left there with my heart beating in my ears. But it didn't end there. At the pharmacy, the cashier looked at me with pity. At the bakery, 2 ladies stopped talking as soon as I entered. And on the corner of my street, I saw the neighbor from number 12 talking to another woman. When they saw me pass, they lowered their voices and turned away. But I managed to hear. "They say the daughter-in-law already kept 3 properties. Poor Mrs. Emily, and she treated her like a daughter." Every word was a stab. It wasn't just that Sarah had betrayed me. It was that the whole neighborhood knew, or at least they suspected it. And I didn't have proof, only intuitions. only a huge void where my trust used to be. That night, alone in the house, I sat at Michael's desk. It was an antique piece of dark wood with deep drawers and a desk lamp he used to review contracts. I opened the first drawer. Papers, old bills, electric receipts. The second drawer, notebooks, pens, a photo of us on vacation in Florida, smiling under the sun. My eyes filled with tears. "Michael, what did they do to you?" I whispered. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the third drawer, all the way at the back, was a manila folder. It was hidden under some old architectural blueprints. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were bank statements, but they weren't the ones I knew. It was an account I had never seen, in the name of Michael and Sarah. I felt the world stop. Bank movements, transfers, $200,000 withdrawn in August, another $100,000 in September, and then, just a week before Michael died, another transfer of $300,000, $800,000 in total. $600,000 moved before his death and $200,000 after, without my knowledge. I checked the dates. I compared them with my calendar. All those transfers were made on days when I was away, visiting my sister upstate or on a spiritual retreat. Sarah had waited for the perfect moment. And Michael? Did Michael know? Or had she fooled him too? My hands trembled so much the papers crinkled between my fingers. Then the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. "Mrs. Emily Johnson?" "Yes, who is speaking?" "This is Dr. Vance. I worked at St. Raphael Hospital when your husband was admitted." My breath caught. "What do you need, doctor?" There was a long pause. Too long. "I need to speak with you, in person. There is something that should have been investigated at the time, but no one wanted to listen to me." My heart pounded so hard I felt the pulse in my temples. "What are you talking about?" "About your husband's final hours, about what we found in his blood, and about who was with him when everything happened." I closed my eyes. Tears ran free, hot, furious. "Tell me where and when." "Tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the coffee shop across from the hospital. Come alone." He hung up. I stayed there, sitting at Michael's desk, with the bank statements scattered in front of me and the phone still in my hand. The rumors were true. Something horrible had happened, and everyone knew it, but no one dared to say it out loud, except me. Because I was no longer going to stay silent. Tomorrow I would find out the truth, the whole truth. And if Sarah had killed my husband, if she had poisoned his last days of life to steal everything from me, then she would also have to pay. It didn't matter how long it took me. It didn't matter how much it hurt. Michael deserved justice, and I was going to give it to him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering, trying to find the exact moment when everything began to crumble. The moment Sarah stopped being the loving daughter-in-law and became this. And then I saw it clearly. It was 4 years ago. Daniel arrived home one Sunday with her, hanging on his arm, smiling as if she had won the lottery. She was 28 then. He was 32. "Mom, Dad, I want to introduce you to someone very special." Sarah entered our living room with sure steps, almost rehearsed. She wore a white dress with small flowers, loose hair falling in perfect waves over her shoulders, low heels, natural makeup, everything calculated to look innocent. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Emily." She extended her hand with a warm smile. "Daniel has told me so much about you." Michael was charmed from the first moment. "What a polite girl," he told me later when they left, "and you can tell she loves our son." I didn't say anything, but something in my stomach wasn't calm. Maybe it was the way her eyes scanned the house when she entered, not with curiosity, with evaluation, as if she were measuring every piece of furniture, every painting, every inch of our life. Maybe it was the way she touched the porcelain vase in the entryway and asked, with that sweet voice, "Is this antique? It must be worth a fortune." Or maybe it was simply a mother's instinct, that uncomfortable tickle that tells you, This person is not who she appears to be. But Daniel was in love. And when a son is in love, mothers become invisible. They got married 6 months later, a big expensive wedding which Michael and I paid for almost entirely. Sarah said her family couldn't contribute much because they came from a humble situation. We, of course, understood. Or so we believed. After the wedding, things changed little by little. So slowly you barely notice. Like when a plant withers, it doesn't die all at once. It fades leaf by leaf. First it was the family dinners. Sarah always had an excuse to arrive late or leave early. I have work. I have a headache. Daniel and I have plans. Then she started having opinions on everything. Mother-in-law, don't you think this living room needs a renovation? It looks a bit outdated. Michael, I've seen some incredible properties downtown. You should invest before the prices go up. Daniel told me you have land out of state. Wouldn't it be better to sell it and put that money to work? She always talked about money, about investments, about properties. And Michael, who was a noble but trusting man, started listening to her. She is smart, Emily, he told me. She has a vision for business. I tried to warn him, more than once. Michael, that girl only talks about money. Doesn't that seem strange to you? He laughed. You are exaggerating, my love. She just wants to help. But I wasn't exaggerating. I remember the day I found a credit card in Michael's jacket pocket, a card I didn't recognize. I checked it. It was in his name, but Sarah was the authorized user. Expenses, thousands of dollars in clothes, restaurants, trips, all paid for by my husband. When I confronted him, Michael got uncomfortable. I lent her the card a couple of times, for emergencies. Emergencies? I showed him the statement. A $5,000 handbag is an emergency? Emily, please, she's our son's wife. What do you want me to do? Tell her no? That was the first time we fought about her, and it wasn't the last. Sarah began visiting Michael at his office. Just to ask for advice, Daniel said. But I knew there was something more. I saw how my husband arrived home quieter and more distant each time. One day I found him in his study, head in his hands. What's wrong, my love? Nothing, I'm tired. Michael, talk to me. He looked up. His eyes were tired, sad. I signed some papers I probably shouldn't have signed. My heart stopped. What papers? Sarah asked me to help her with an investment. She said it was urgent, that Daniel was worried about the future. I just wanted to help. How much? $200,000. I felt the floor open beneath my feet. Michael, are you crazy? I know it was stupid, but she said she would pay it back, that it was just temporary. Of course, she never paid back anything. And when I tried to talk to Daniel, he defended her. Mom, you are being unfair. Sarah isn't like that. You don't know her like I do. Daniel, open your eyes. That woman is using your father. Enough! His voice exploded in the living room. You have always distrusted her, since day one. You know what? Sarah was right. She said you would never accept us being happy. Those words broke me, because they weren't my son's words. They were her words, coming out of his mouth. Sarah had poisoned him, not with substances, with ideas, with lies, with that terrible ability some people have to make you doubt your own reality. And while I was losing my son, Michael was getting sick. It started with fatigue, then dizziness, then stomach pains that the doctors couldn't explain. It's stress, they said. Rest more. But I knew it wasn't stress, because every time Sarah visited him, Michael got worse. Until one day in the hospital, while I was visiting my sick sister, Michael had a massive cardiac arrest, and the only person who was with him at that moment was Sarah. Now, sitting in my bed, with cold sheets and a silent house, I understood everything. Sarah hadn't entered this family for love. She had entered to destroy us. And worst of all, she had succeeded. But there was still one thing she couldn't take from me: my will to fight. Tomorrow I would meet with Dr. Vance Tomorrow, I would know the truth about what happened in that hospital. And when I had the answers, Sarah would discover she underestimated the wrong woman. Because a mother can forgive many things, but she will never, ever forgive the one who snatched away the love of her life. And I had just decided that forgiveness was no longer an option. The next morning, I woke up with an icy certainty in my chest. I needed proof. I needed something concrete, tangible, that couldn't be ignored or dismissed as widow's paranoia, something that even Daniel couldn't deny. And that something was in my garage. I went downstairs still in my robe, with my hair in a messy braid. The sun was just beginning to sneak through the windows, dyeing everything pale orange. The house smelled of stale coffee and silence. I made myself a cup of tea that I didn't drink. My hands were shaking too much. At 8 in the morning, I called Sam. He had been Michael's trusted mechanic for over 20 years, a man in his 60s with grease-stained hands and honesty that was bulletproof. If anyone could tell me the truth about what was in my car, it was him. "Mrs. Emily?" His voice on the other end of the line. "How are you? I'm so sorry about Mr. Michael." "Thank you, Sam. I need you to come to my house. It is urgent." "Is something wrong with the car?" "I don't know. That is what I need you to tell me." There was a pause. "I'm on my way." He arrived half an hour later in his beat-up truck that smelled of burnt oil and cigarettes. He brought his toolbox and that serious expression he put on when things were important. "Show me the car, ma'am." I led him to the garage. My gray sedan was parked in the same spot where I left it after Skinny's scream. I hadn't touched it since then. I hadn't dared. Sam crouched in front of the hood, opened it carefully, and for several minutes said nothing. He just checked, touched, moved wires. His frown grew deeper and deeper. "Holy God," he murmured. My stomach contracted. "What is it?" He took a small flashlight from his pocket and shone it into the engine. Then he turned to me with an expression I had never seen on him. Pure fear. "Mrs. Emily, did you start this car after parking it here?" "No. Someone warned me not to." "Thank God." He wiped his hands on a dirty rag and signaled for me to come closer. "Come, look at this." I approached, although every step was an effort. I didn't want to see, but I had to. Sam pointed to a wire cut cleanly, almost surgically. "This is the wire that connects the ignition system to the fuel pump. It is cut, not broken, cut with something sharp, a razor, probably." I felt my throat close up. And what does that mean? That someone wanted the car not to start immediately, that you would insist, that you would try several times. Why? He pulled something out with tweezers. It was a small plastic bag placed over the exhaust manifold. The ignition wire was severed with a blade, a setup compatible with secondary ignition and instant explosion. My breath stopped. What would have happened if I had insisted on starting it? Sam looked me straight in the eyes. The heat would have melted the bag. The liquid would have fallen onto the hot engine, and with the sparks from the starter... He paused. "It would have exploded, Mrs. Emily. You would have exploded." My legs failed me. I had to lean against the garage wall to not fall. The world was spinning. "Are you sure?" "Completely. This is not an accident. This is not vandalism by some idiot kid. This is..." He swallowed saliva. "Attempted murder." The words hung suspended in the air, heavy as stones. Attempted murder. Someone had wanted to kill me. Someone had planned for me to burn to death inside my own car, in my own garage, with no witnesses, no escape. And that someone was Sarah. "Sam," my voice came out as a broken whisper, "I need you to document all this. Photos, videos, whatever is necessary." I was already thinking that. He took out his cell phone. "I'm going to record everything, and then we should call the police." "No, not yet." He looked at me confused. "Mrs. Emily, this is serious. If someone tried..." "I know, but I need more proof. I need this to be irrefutable because the person who did this..." My voice trembled. "Is my daughter-in-law. And if I am going to accuse her, I need there to be no doubt. None." Sam closed the hood carefully, as if the car were a bomb that could still explode. "Your daughter-in-law? Sarah?" I nodded. A homeless man saw her. He saw her and another man here in the early morning tampering with the car. Sam shook his head, incredulous. "My God, but why? What does she gain with everything?" Tears began to roll down my cheeks. She gains everything. The inheritance, the properties, total control over my son. If I disappear, she keeps it all. Sam cursed under his breath. He put away his tools with brusque movements, furious. "This isn't going to stay like this, Mrs. Emily. I won't let anything happen to you." "Nothing is going to happen to me," I said, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, "because now I know what she is capable of, and I'm not going to give her another chance." Sam finished recording everything. He sent the videos to my cell phone, every cut wire, every angle of the melted bag, every inch of evidence. "What are you going to do now?" he asked me before leaving. "I'm going to meet with someone, a doctor who worked with Michael at the hospital, and then I'm going to build a case so solid that not even the best lawyer in the world can defend her." Sam put a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Michael would be proud of you." Those words broke me and rebuilt me at the same time. When he left, I stayed in the garage, looking at that car that almost became my coffin, and something inside me changed forever. It wasn't just pain I felt, it was fury. A cold, calculated, relentless fury. Sarah had tried to erase me from this world. She had tried to turn me into ashes to keep everything Michael and I built, but she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She believed a 68-year-old widow would be easy to eliminate. She believed no one would listen to me. She believed she could get away with it. But she was about to discover that the most dangerous woman in the world is the one who has nothing left to lose. And I had just lost everything. I saved the videos. Later, Ralph would present them to the police. Now I had only one mission left, to get justice. And I wouldn't stop until I saw her pay for every tear, every lie, every betrayal. The game was just beginning. And this time, I would make the rules. I had 3 hours before my meeting with Dr. Vance. 3 hours that I decided to use to find Skinny. He was the only person who had seen Sarah that night, the only witness to her crime, and I needed his full testimony, every detail, every word he could remember. Because if I was going to face her, I needed weapons, and witnesses are the best weapons. I left my house with the sun already high in the sky. I carried my purse across my shoulder, cash, and a determination that burned inside me like fire. I looked for him first on the corner where I had seen him that morning. He wasn't there. I asked a street corn vendor, "Have you seen a skinny man with dirty clothes who usually hangs around here?" The vendor looked at me with suspicion. "Why are you looking for him?" "He saved my life. I want to thank him." His expression softened. "Sometimes I see him by the market or in the park, near the back benches. Several of them sleep there." I thanked him and walked toward the market. My legs weren't as strong as before, but the urgency gave me strength. I passed the fruit stands, the meat counters, the bakery, the smell of freshly made tortillas mixed with flowers and fish. And then I saw him. He was sitting on the ground, leaning against the back wall of the market with a plastic bag by his side. His head was down, eyes closed. For a moment, I thought he was sleeping, but when I approached, he looked up. His eyes recognized me instantly. "Ma'am," he murmured, trying to get up. "No, stay there." I crouched in front of him, ignoring the pain in my knees. "I came looking for you." He blinked, confused. "For me?" "Yes. I need you to tell me everything you saw that night. Everything, omitting nothing." Skinny swallowed saliva. His hands were trembling. "I already told you, ma'am. I saw your daughter-in-law and a man. But I need more." "At what time exactly? What did that man look like? What else did they do?" He lowered his gaze, nervous. "I don't want problems." I took out my wallet and put $500 in his hand. His eyes opened wide. It's not for problems. It's for justice. That money is yours, and there will be more if you help me stop her." He stared at the bills as if he couldn't believe they were real. Then he quickly put them in his pocket and took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll tell you everything." "Go ahead." "It was around 2 in the morning. I was there on the corner of your street. I always sleep there because there are fewer police to chase me away. I was half asleep when I heard a car parking near your house. I peeked out. It was a black car, elegant. 2 people got out, a woman and a man." "What did the man look like?" "Tall, wearing a dark suit, short hair. I couldn't see his face well because he was wearing a cap, but he walked like someone used to giving orders. Do you understand me? With his back straight, without fear." I nodded, absorbing every word. "And the woman? That one I recognized. I've seen her at your house before. It's your daughter-in-law. She was wearing black pants and a hooded jacket, but I saw her well when she passed under the street lamp. It was her, for sure." "What did they do?" "They approached your car. The man opened the hood. I don't know how, maybe he had tools. They were there for about 10 minutes. She shone light with her cell phone. He put his hands in the engine. They spoke quietly, but I could hear a little." "What did they say?" Skinny closed his eyes, concentrating. "She said, 'Is it ready?' And he replied, 'Yes, but you have to make sure she tries to start it several times. If not, it won't work.' And she said, 'She will. She's always stubborn.' And then they laughed. My blood froze in my veins. Stubborn. She knew me. She knew that if my car didn't start the first time, I would insist. 1, 2, 3 times until it exploded." "Anything else?" My voice came out barely as a thread. "Yes, before leaving, she gave him something, an envelope, and the man said, 'With this, we are even.' Then they got in the car and left." "Did you see the license plates?" "No, ma'am, it was too dark, but the car was a BMW, one of those new ones, black, with chrome rims." I opened my purse and took out my cell phone. "Could you recognize the man if you saw him again?" "Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see his face well." "And if I show you photos?" "Could be." I started thinking. Who was that man? An accomplice? A lover? Someone Sarah paid to do her dirty work? "Skinny, I need you to do something for me, something very important." He looked at me with those tired but attentive eyes. "Tell me." "I want you to come with me to a safe place. I'm going to pay for a hotel room for you for a few days, and I need you to write down everything you just told me, with all the details you remember. Can you do it?" "I don't write very well, ma'am." "It doesn't matter. I'll help you. But I need your testimony recorded, because the time will come when you will have to repeat this in front of other people. Do you understand?" He nodded slowly. "In front of the police?" "Maybe. Or in front of a judge?" Skinny turned pale. "Ma'am, I can't get involved in those things. I have a record, petty theft, nothing serious, but if they see me in court—" "Nothing is going to happen to you." I put a hand on his shoulder. "I promise you I will protect you, but I need you to help me, because that woman not only tried to kill me, she also killed my husband, and if we don't stop her, she will do it again." His eyes filled with something resembling compassion. "Your husband was good to me. He treated me like a person, not like trash. Then help me get justice for him." There was a long silence. The noise of the market continued around us. Voices, laughter, the tapping of knives against wooden boards. But in that little corner, it was just him and me, connected by a terrible truth. Finally, Skinny nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." I helped him up. He was lighter than I thought. Pure skin and bones. I took him to a modest but clean hotel near downtown. I paid for a week. I bought him new clothes, soap, food. And that afternoon, sitting in the small room smelling of detergent, we wrote his testimony together. Every word, every detail, every second of that cursed night. When we finished, I took a photo of him with my cell phone, holding it in his hands, his signature at the bottom. "Keep it safe. I told him. "This paper can change everything." He folded it carefully and put it under the mattress. "Ma'am, do you really think this will do any good?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Skinny, you are the only person in the world who saw what she did. You are invisible to society, I know. But right now, you are the most important person in my life because you have the truth, and the truth always, always ends up winning." He smiled for the first time. A broken smile, but real. "Thank you for believing me, ma'am. Thank you for having the courage to speak." I left the hotel with a lighter heart. I had a witness. I had proof of the car. And in an hour, I would have the answers about what happened at the hospital. Sarah had built her empire on lies, but I was about to tear it down piece by piece until nothing was left. I arrived at the coffee shop across from the hospital 15 minutes before 3. I sat at a table by the window from where I could see the entrance of St. Raphael. That white 5-story building, which once seemed like a place of hope, now looked like a mausoleum. Inside there, Michael had died. Inside there, Sarah had let him die. I ordered a coffee that I didn't drink. I just held it between my hands, feeling the heat of the disposable cup, trying to calm the trembling that wouldn't go away. At 3 sharp, a man entered the coffee shop. 50-something years old, graying hair, medical coat under a gray jacket, round glasses, serious look. He searched for me with his eyes. When he saw me, he nodded. He approached my table and extended his hand. "Mrs. Emily, I am Dr. Vance. Thank you for coming." He sat in front of me, ordered a black coffee, and for a moment said nothing. He just looked at me, evaluating me, as if trying to decide if I was strong enough to hear what he had to say. Finally, he spoke. "I shouldn't be here. What I am going to tell you could cost me my job, maybe even my license, but I can't keep quiet anymore." My heart beat faster. "Tell me the truth, please." He took a thin folder out of his backpack. He put it on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were printed pages, medical studies, charts. "Your husband arrived at the hospital on September 18th. He complained of dizziness, abdominal pain, nausea. We thought it was acute gastritis. We admitted him to hydrate him and run tests." I nodded. I already knew all that. During the first 2 days, his condition was stable. Uncomfortable, but stable. But then, he paused. He started to get worse. Fast, too fast. What happened? His vital signs began to fail. Tachycardia, irregular blood pressure, mental confusion, and the strangest thing, his blood tests showed elevated potassium levels, much higher than normal. And what does that mean? Severe hyperkalemia can cause a sudden cardiac arrest. But the strange thing is, he had no medical reason to have those levels. He wasn't diabetic. He didn't have kidney problems. He wasn't taking medications that justified it. I felt something cold run down my back. "Are you saying that?" "I am saying that someone could have administered potassium externally, in high doses, without anyone noticing." The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. Who? How? I don't know. But I know who had unlimited access to his room. Who was with him the last hours of his life? Who was there when no one else could be? "Sarah." He nodded slowly. "Your daughter-in-law." "Yes." I covered my mouth with my hands. Tears sprang forth uncontrollably. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Michael hadn't died of a natural heart attack. They had murdered him, and I wasn't there to protect him. "Why didn't you say anything?" My voice came out broken, desperate. "Why didn't they investigate it?" Dr. Vance lowered his gaze, ashamed. I tried. I spoke with the hospital director. I showed him the tests. I told him something didn't add up. But he told me we couldn't make accusations without solid proof, that an autopsy needed the family's consent. And your daughter-in-law, she refused. The lawyer Stone advised that cremation would be the most dignified and sanitary option, Dr. Vance continued. Daniel signed trusting his word. What? He said he didn't want to desecrate his father-in-law's body, that it was disrespectful, that Michael would have wanted to rest in peace, and your son supported her. I closed my eyes. Daniel, my own son, had blocked the investigation without knowing it. Then they cremated him, I whispered. Yes, and with that, any possibility of proving what happened was lost. I stayed silent. The noise of the coffee shop felt distant, unreal. Voices, cups clinking, the steam from the coffee machines. Everything felt like a dream from which I couldn't wake up. Doctor, do you believe she did it? He looked me straight in the eyes. Yes, I believe your daughter-in-law poisoned your husband. I can't prove it. But in 25 years of my career, I have seen many deaths. And this one wasn't natural. Tears rolled free down my cheeks. How did she do it? It could be with potassium supplements. They are easy to get, sold without a prescription. In normal doses, they are harmless, but in high doses, mixed in food or drink, they are lethal. And the worst part, they leave very little trace, especially if the body is cremated. I felt empty, as if someone had ripped out my soul. He trusted her, I said with a trembling voice. Michael trusted everyone. It was his greatest virtue and his downfall. I am so sorry, Mrs. Emily. Can I keep these documents? He pushed the folder toward me. They are copies. Use them as you need. If this goes to trial, I will testify. I don't care what happens to me. Your husband deserves justice. I squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. When Dr. Vance left, I stayed sitting in that coffee shop for almost an hour. I couldn't move. I couldn't cry anymore. I was just there, looking out the window, watching people enter and leave the hospital, worried families, sick people walking slowly, doctors in a hurry, and me, a 68-year-old widow carrying the weight of an unbearable truth. Michael had been murdered. My husband, the love of my life, the father of my children, had been slowly poisoned by the woman we trusted, the woman we called family. And worst of all, my son still didn't believe me. Daniel had called me paranoid. He had told me to stop inventing things. He had told me Sarah was innocent. How do you tell a son his wife is a murderer? How do you destroy his world to save the truth? I got up from the table. I paid. I went out to the street. The cold afternoon air hit my face, but I didn't feel it. I walked aimlessly for a while. I passed in front of a church. I hesitated. I hadn't entered one in years. But something pushed me inside. The interior was almost empty. Only an older lady praying in the first row and the smell of incense floating in the air. I sat on a back bench and looked toward the altar. Michael, I whispered, I couldn't protect you. Forgive me. Tears returned, silent, bitter. But I swear to you by what I love most that she is going to pay. I swear it. Even if it costs me everything I have left, she is going to pay. I left the church with swollen eyes, but with something new in my chest. Purpose. It wasn't just pain I felt anymore. It was determination. Sarah had destroyed my family. She had killed my husband. She had tried to kill me, but she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She believed an older woman alone, without power, would be easy to eliminate. But she was wrong, because pain can break you, or it can turn you into something stronger than you ever imagined. And I had just decided that my pain was not going to destroy me. It was going to be my weapon. And with that weapon, I was going to get justice, even if it was the last thing I did in this life. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake at the dining table, surrounded by papers, photos, bank documents, everything spread out like the pieces of a macabre puzzle, and me in the center, trying to put together the complete picture of betrayal. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed professional help, someone who knew how to move in the shadows, someone who could find what I couldn't see, and I knew the perfect person, Ralph Carter. He had been Michael's partner more than 15 years ago in the first construction projects. A brilliant, meticulous man with that rare ability to see what others ignore. But after a legal problem that almost ruined him, Ralph left the business world and dedicated himself to something else. Private investigation. Michael always said Ralph had the nose of a bloodhound, and I needed exactly that. I called him at 7 in the morning. "Emily?" His voice sounded surprised. "How long has it been? I am so sorry about Michael. He was a great man." "Thank you, Ralph. I need to see you. It is urgent." There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No, but I will be. Can you meet me today?" "Tell me where." 2 hours later, we were sitting in a discreet restaurant downtown. Ralph arrived with a worn leather briefcase and that penetrating gaze that had always intimidated me a little. 52 years old, short hair with gray at the temples, 3-day beard, dark suit without a tie. He sat in front of me and went straight to the point. "What do you need?" I told him everything, every word, every detail. Skinny's scream, the cut wire, the bag with gasoline, the modified will, the rumors in town, the meeting with Dr. Vance, the poisoning, the bank transfers. Ralph didn't interrupt me a single time. He just listened, taking notes in a small notebook with a black pen. His eyes never stopped looking at me. When I finished, he closed the notebook and exhaled slowly. "This is serious, Emily. Very serious. I know. If what you say is true, your daughter-in-law is not just a thief, she is a murderer. That's why I need proof. Proof a judge cannot ignore. Proof that forces my son to open his eyes." Ralph leaned back in the chair, thoughtful. "How much money do you have available?" "Whatever is necessary. Because this isn't going to be cheap. We are going to need to trace bank accounts, get phone records, investigate her past, maybe hire surveillance. And everything has to be done with absolute discretion. If she finds out you are investigating her, I know, she could disappear, or worse, try to kill me again." "Exactly." I took out a check I had prepared that morning. $5,000. I put it on the table. "This is just the advance." Ralph looked at the check. Then he looked at me. "Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we open this box, there is no turning back. What we find can change your life forever." My life already changed, Ralph. I already lost my husband. I already lost my son's trust. I almost lost my own life. I have nothing else to lose except my dignity, and I don't plan to give that to her. He smiled slightly, a sad but respectful smile. "Michael was right about you. He always said you were the stronger of the two." He took the check and put it away. "Okay, I accept the case. But we are going to do this my way. No emotions, just facts. Just solid evidence. Agreed?" "Agreed." During the next 10 days, Ralph worked in silence. I continued with my normal life, or at least pretending to. I went to the market. I visited my sister. I tended the garden. I smiled when necessary. But inside, every second was a torture of waiting. Ralph called me every 2 days to update me. First call. I found something interesting. Sarah is not really named Sarah Miller. She changed her name 8 years ago. Her original name was Sarah Mendez, and she has a record. What kind of record? Minor fraud. 10 years ago, she was accused of swindling an older man in Ohio. The case was closed because the man died before the trial. My blood ran cold. Died? Heart attack. At least that's what the death certificate says. But the coincidences start to be too many, don't you think? Second call. The transfers you found aren't the only ones. There are more. Many more. It matched what I had already found. $800,000 in total. $600,000 before his death and $200,000 after, all made during the last year, all to accounts Sarah controlled. But the interesting thing is that some of those transfers were made from his personal account after he was hospitalized. That is impossible. He was unconscious. Exactly, which means someone had access to his banking passwords, and there is only one person who could have had them. Third call. I hired surveillance. Sarah has met 3 times in the last week with a man. Same guy your witness describes. Tall, dark suit, black BMW. I got photos. I'm sending them to you. Minutes later, the photos arrived on my cell phone, and what I saw left me breathless. The man in the suit was Gerald Stone, corporate lawyer, specialist in inheritances and wills, and the same lawyer who was present the day of the will reading at the notary office. Everything started to fit. Gerald had helped Sarah forge the documents, change the will, move the money, and probably he was the one who cut the wire of my car that night. It wasn't just a conspirator, it was a complete network. 4th call, the most important one. Emily, I need you to come to my office. Now. I found something you have to see. I arrived in less than half an hour. Ralph was waiting for me with the computer on. On the screen were scanned documents. Look at this. He zoomed in on the image. It is the modified will, the one read at the notary office. Yes, I already saw it. Now look at this. He opened another document. This is Michael's signature on old contracts. Look at the slant of the M, the shape of the O, the space between the letters. I saw it. Now look at the signature on the modified will. The comparison was evident. It wasn't the same signature. It was good, very good, almost perfect, but it wasn't identical. It's fake, I whispered. Correct. Michael never signed that will. Someone did it for him, and that someone is very professional, probably Gerald. Lawyers know how to copy signatures. It is part of their forensic training. I felt my legs trembling. This is enough, right? With this, we can go to the police. Ralph shook his head. It is a good start, but it is not enough for an arrest. We need more. We need a confession, or at least something that ties them directly to the crime. And how do we get that? He looked at me with that intensity that gave me chills. By setting a trap for them. My heart beat faster. What kind of trap? One they cannot refuse. One where they feel safe, where they let their guard down, and where every word they say is recorded. I smiled for the first time in days. Tell me what I have to do. And so began the final phase of my revenge. I was no longer just a widow looking for answers. I was a woman armed with proof, with witnesses, with a plan. And Sarah was about to discover that the worst mistake you can make in life is to underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. Because when a woman decides to fight for her truth, there is no lie strong enough to stop her. And I was just getting started. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Ralph designed it with surgical precision. Every detail, every movement, every word I would have to say. You have to make her feel like she won, he explained in his office, that you are no longer a threat, that you gave up. Only then will she lower her guard. And how do I do that? Call her. Invite her to dinner. Tell her you want to make peace, that you are tired of fighting, that you want to sign the distribution of the shares in peace and move on with your life. The mere idea of faking kindness with her turned my stomach. I don't know if I can. Ralph put a hand on my shoulder. I know it is difficult, but it is the only way. If you confront her directly, she will run. Or worse, she will hire better lawyers and bury everything. We need her to feel safe, to talk. And when she talks, we will catch her. I took a deep breath. And the cameras? I'm going to install 3. One in the living room, hidden in the wall clock. Another in the dining room, in the decorative plant. And one more in the kitchen, just in case. High-definition audio, HD video. Everything will go directly to an encrypted server. Even if they destroy the cameras, the recording will be safe. And if she doesn't say anything incriminating? She will. People like Sarah can't resist bragging, especially when they think they won. You just have to provoke her subtly, ask casual questions, let her ego do the rest. He gave me a list of key phrases I should mention during dinner. Phrases like, Michael always trusted you. I never understood why he changed so much in his last months. Sometimes I wonder what really happened at the hospital. The car. How lucky I didn't start it that day. Each one designed to plant doubt, to provoke a reaction so Sarah couldn't help but defend herself, or better yet, justify herself. I practiced in front of the mirror for 2 days. Kind smile, voice tired but reconciling, gestures of defeat. It had to be perfect because if she suspected anything, everything would fall apart. Finally, on a Thursday afternoon, I called her. My hand trembled when I dialed her number. Emily? Her voice sounded surprised. Sarah, hi, how are you? Good. And you? I didn't expect your call. I know, I need to talk to you. And with Daniel. But mostly with you. There was a cautious pause. What is this about? I want you both to come to dinner at my house. This Saturday. I need to make peace. I'm tired of all this pain, of the fights, of the distrust. Michael wouldn't have wanted this. I could hear her mental gears working on the other end of the line. Are you sure? Totally. I want to sign the pending papers, close this chapter, and move on. We all deserve peace, don't you think? Her voice softened. She thought she had won. That sounds perfect, Emily. Daniel is going to be happy to hear this. He has been very worried about you. I know. I am worried about him, too. About all of us. I'll expect you at 8. I'll prepare something special. We will be there. I hung up and released the air I didn't know I was holding. Ralph, who had been listening from the other room, entered with a smile. Perfect. She fell for it completely. Now we just need everything to go well on Saturday. It will go well. Trust the process. On Friday, Ralph arrived early to install the cameras. He worked for 3 hours, adjusting angles, testing audio, making sure everything remained invisible but functional. When he finished, he showed me how it looked from his laptop. The living room, the dining room, the kitchen, everything in split screen, sharp image, clear audio. Remember, he told me before leaving, stay calm. Don't accuse her of anything. Just let her talk. The truth always comes out when people feel comfortable. Saturday arrived like a silent storm. I spent the day cooking. I prepared roast beef, mashed potatoes with gravy, and green beans. Daniel's favorite dessert, New York cheesecake. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth we used on special occasions. Candles, fresh flowers. Everything had to look authentic. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened the door with a smile that hurt my soul. Daniel entered first. He looked tired but hopeful. He hugged me tight. Thanks for this, Mom. Thank you for coming, my love. Sarah entered behind him. Elegant as always. Tight black dress. Heels. Perfect hair. That smile that I now recognized as pure falsehood. Emily, you look so lovely, and it smells delicious. Thank you, dear. Come in. Sit down. We sat at the table. I served the food. We talked about trivial things at first, the weather, the traffic, the news. Daniel seemed relaxed, happy to see us together without fighting. Sarah, on the other hand, watched me, still cautious, still evaluating. Then, while I poured more wine, I dropped the first key phrase. You know, Sarah, despite everything, I know Michael trusted you a lot. She smiled. He was a wonderful man, very generous. He was, sometimes too much. I paused. I never understood why he changed so much in his last months. He became so distant. Sarah took a sip of wine, thoughtful. I think he was tired. Work, stress. You know how business is. Maybe, but it was strange, especially when he started getting sick. The doctors never found a clear explanation. I looked her directly in the eyes. She held my gaze without blinking. Sometimes life is like that, Emily. Unfair, unexplainable. I suppose so. I wiped my mouth with the napkin. I am glad you were with him at the hospital. I wouldn't have been able to bear him dying alone. Someone had to be there. Her voice had an almost proud tone. Someone who knew how to take care of him properly. Daniel interrupted, uncomfortable. Mom, maybe we shouldn't talk about this right now. You are right, my love. I'm sorry. I smiled. It's just that Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if things had been different. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes bright. Different how? I don't know. If I had been there, if I had insisted that more doctors check him. Yes, I made a dramatic pause. If I had started the car that day. The silence that followed was electric. Sarah blinked, only once, but it was enough. "What car?" she asked, but her voice sounded forced. "My car. A few weeks ago. It had a strange mechanical problem. The mechanic said it was almost as if someone had sabotaged it." I laughed softly. "But that would be ridiculous, right?" She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers gripped the wine glass. "Ridiculous," she repeated finally, but her smile no longer reached her eyes. And I knew in that moment that I had her, that every word that came out of her mouth from now on would be recorded, and that the trap had just closed. I just had to wait for her to hang herself with her own tongue, because the truth always finds a way to come out, especially when you push it with the right questions. Dinner continued for another hour. I kept up my role as the tired, reconciling widow. Sarah, on the other hand, was beginning to show cracks, small ones, almost imperceptible. But they were there. She touched her neck nervously. She drank wine faster than normal. She looked toward the door every so often as if she wanted to escape. But most importantly, she talked too much. She started bragging, justifying herself, explaining things no one had asked her. "Michael asked me to take care of his accounts because he trusted me," she said while cutting a piece of cheesecake. "He said I had a better head for numbers than Daniel." "No offense, love." Daniel smiled uncomfortably. "No offense taken, Mom, but it's true. I was always terrible with finances." "I know, honey." I looked at Sarah. "And it is admirable that Michael trusted you so much, although I must confess I was surprised he moved so much money without telling me anything." She left the fork on the plate. They were investments, opportunities that couldn't wait. He understood that. Of course, although I paused as if remembering something. "The bank called me a few days ago. They said there were transfers after Michael was in the hospital, unconscious. How strange, right?" Sarah went rigid. "They must be wrong. Banks make mistakes all the time." "Maybe," I smiled sweetly. "Or maybe someone had his passwords." Silence fell like an anvil. Daniel looked at us confused, sensing the tension but not understanding its origin. Sarah, on the other hand, stared at me. Her eyes were no longer sweet. They were hard, calculating. "Emily, where are you going with all this?" "Nowhere, dear. I'm just trying to understand how things worked, to close this chapter in peace, like we said." She didn't answer. She just took her glass of wine and drained it in one gulp. Then I decided to throw the final punch. "You know, I met someone a few weeks ago, a homeless man. He told me a very interesting story about a woman and a man in a black suit who were near my car one night." The glass almost fell from her hands. "What?" "Yes. What a coincidence, right? Just the night before I discovered the mechanical problem." Sarah stood up abruptly. The chair screeched against the floor. "I don't have to listen to this. Daniel, we're leaving." But Daniel had also stood up, looking at me with a mix of confusion and anger. "Mom, what is going on? What are you talking about?" "Ask your wife," I said with a calm but firm voice. "This is ridiculous." Sarah grabbed her purse. "Your mother is paranoid, Daniel. I told you. She needs professional help." "Paranoid?" I stood up slowly, keeping calm. "You know what's funny, Sarah? That a paranoid person wouldn't have this." I took out my cell phone and put the photos Ralph had sent me on the table. Sarah with Gerald Stone. In restaurants, in parking lots, in her car. Daniel's eyes widened. "What? What is this?" "Your wife with the lawyer who modified your father's will, the same lawyer who was present at the reading, the same man who, according to my witness, helped her sabotage my car." Sarah stepped back, pale. That proves nothing. Gerald is a colleague, a friend. A friend who helped you steal $800,000. A friend who forged Michael's signature. A friend who tried to kill me. You are lying. Do you want me to call the doctor who treated your father-in-law? The one who found abnormal levels of potassium in his blood? The one who suspected he was poisoned? Daniel took a step back as if he had been hit. No, that cannot be. Sarah turned to him, with fake tears flowing immediately. Baby, don't believe her. She is inventing everything. She is jealous. She has always hated me. But Daniel looked at her differently now, as if seeing her for the first time. For an instant, his voice trembled. I just wanted them to respect me. I was always the guest, never the owner. Then she hardened again. Your father was an idiot. Is it true? His voice came out broken. Did you poison my father? No, of course not. This is madness. Answer me. His scream resonated through the whole house. Sarah opened her mouth. Then she closed it. Her eyes moved from me to Daniel, looking for an exit that didn't exist. And then she did what she could have done. She smiled. A cold, calculating smile, empty of any pretense of innocence. Your father was an idiot, she said with a cutting voice. A foolish old man who signed whatever just to feel important. It was so easy to manipulate him, it was laughable. Daniel recoiled as if stabbed. My God. And you know what? Sarah continued now without breaks. I regret only one thing, not having finished the job with her, too. She pointed at me with contempt. But don't worry, there is still time. She took something out of her purse, a small, silver, sharp knife. Daniel screamed, Sarah, no! But she had already lunged at me. I didn't have time to think, only to react. I moved to the side. The knife grazed my arm, tearing the sleeve of my blouse. And then, the front door burst open. Ralph ran in, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. Get on the ground, drop the weapon, one of them shouted while pointing at Sarah. Ralph, without losing his cool, showed the agents that the cameras were transmitting everything in real time to the secure server. Sarah froze. The knife fell from her hands. Her face went from hate to panic in a second. The police subdued her, handcuffed her. As they dragged her toward the door, she screamed, This is a trap! She provoked me! They set me up! Ralph approached me. Are you okay? I nodded, still trembling. You recorded everything, right? Every word, every movement. It's on the server. Irrefutable. Daniel was sitting on the floor, head in his hands, sobbing like a child. I knelt beside him and hugged him. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. His voice was a broken whisper. Mom, forgive me. I didn't believe you. I thought you were... Shh. It's over. It's over. The police took Sarah away. Her screams faded into the distance. Ralph approached with a serious expression. They are going to arrest Gerald Stone, too. With the recordings and the bank evidence, both are going to spend many years in prison. And the fake will? It will be invalidated. Everything will go back to how it should have been from the beginning. The properties, the money, everything returns to you and your children. I closed my eyes. Relief hit me like a wave. It wasn't joy I felt. It was justice. Michael could rest in peace, and I finally could breathe. The nightmare was over. But I knew the wounds would take a long time to heal, because recovering your life is one thing. Recovering your son's trust is another. And that night, hugging Daniel on the floor of my dining room, I knew the real work was just beginning. Not revenge, but reconstruction. And that, I would discover later, was the hardest of all. Several weeks passed since that night of the trap. Time was no longer measured in days, but in hearings and statements. The following months were a hurricane of lawyers, statements, hearings, and papers. Sarah was formally charged with fraud, forgery of documents, attempted homicide, and although they couldn't prove it completely due to the cremation of the body, conspiracy in Michael's death. Gerald Stone, the accomplice lawyer, was arrested in his office 2 days later. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the bank transfers, and the testimony of Skinny, the homeless man who saw it all, sealed the guilt of both. They had no defense. The trial lasted 4 months. I attended every hearing, sitting on the same bench, wearing the same dark clothes, staring at Sarah every time she entered the room handcuffed. She never returned my gaze. Her lawyer tried everything. He alleged temporary insanity, then psychological manipulation, then that I had provoked her, that it was all self-defense. But the recordings didn't lie. The cameras had no bias. And the jury, 12 people who didn't know her, saw the same thing I had seen from the beginning. An unscrupulous woman, capable of anything for money. The day of the verdict, the room was full. Family, journalists, curious onlookers attracted by the scandal. Daniel was sitting next to me, pale, with his hands clasped on his knees. He had lost so much weight in those months that he looked like a different person. When the judge asked the jury for their verdict, the silence was absolute. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." "How do you find the defendant, Sarah Miller, on the charges of fraud, forgery, and attempted homicide?" "Guilty, on all charges." I heard Daniel let out a trembling sigh. I felt nothing, just a strange emptiness, as if something inside me had turned off and couldn't be turned on again. The judge struck the gavel. The sentence will be 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole before serving at least 12 years. 18 years. Sarah was 32. She would get out at 50, if she got out. I saw her stand up, handcuffed, escorted by 2 officers. For a moment, she turned her head toward me. Our eyes met. There was no rage in her look. There was no regret, just emptiness. And then they took her out of the room. Gerald Stone received 15 years. His career destroyed. His reputation in ruins. After the sentencing, Ralph was waiting for me in the courthouse hallway. "Justice was served," he said. I nodded, but I couldn't smile. "Why don't I feel better?" He put a hand on my shoulder. "Because justice doesn't erase pain, Emily. It only closes the circle. The rest you have to do yourself." He was right. 2 weeks later, the fake will was officially annulled. The 3 properties Sarah had stolen were returned to my name. The $800,000 she had moved were tracked and recovered. Everything Michael built during his life returned to where it always should have been, with his legitimate family. But the money didn't matter to me anymore. What mattered to me was something else. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel came to visit me. He brought flowers. White lilies, my favorites. We sat on the terrace under the soft afternoon sun, with the sound of birds in the background. For a long time, we didn't speak. Finally, he broke the silence. "Mom, I will never be able to ask for enough forgiveness." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do." His voice broke. "I failed you. I failed Dad. I let that woman destroy everything. And the worst is that I didn't believe you. I called you paranoid. I turned my back on you when you needed me most." I put my hand over his. "You were in love, and love blinds. I know that better than anyone." "It's no excuse." "No, but it is an explanation." I looked him in the eyes. "Son, Sarah didn't just fool you. She fooled us all. She was very good at what she did. Too good. And you just wanted to be happy. There was nothing wrong with that." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "How can you forgive me?" "Because you are my son, and because I know your father would have forgiven you too. He loved you, and wherever he is, I know he only wants to see you happy." Daniel broke down. He cried like he hadn't in years, and I hugged him, like when he was a child, like when he fell and came running to seek comfort in my arms, because that never changes. A son will always be your son. No matter how much time passes, no matter how many mistakes he makes, a mother's love has no conditions. That same month, I made a decision. I sold 2 of the properties Sarah had tried to steal. With that money, I created a trust fund for my grandson, Daniel's son, who was barely 6 years old. an innocent child who had lost his grandfather and would now grow up without a mother. I wanted to make sure he was protected, that he had a future, that Sarah's lies wouldn't ruin his life too. The rest of the money I donated. Part went to St. Raphael Hospital with the condition that they improve their security protocols for vulnerable patients. Another part went to a homeless shelter, because Skinny had saved my life. And if he, someone invisible to society, could be my guardian angel, then there were thousands like him who deserved a chance. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because Michael would have done the same, and because I finally understood something that had taken me a lifetime to learn. True wealth is not in what you possess. It is in what you do with what you have. It is in how you treat people who can give you nothing in return. It is in sleeping peacefully knowing you did the right thing, even if no one was watching. One afternoon while organizing Michael's study, I found a letter. It was hidden inside one of his favorite books, a letter he never sent, dated 2 weeks before he died. It said, "Emily, if you are reading this, it is because something happened to me. I need you to know that I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong person. I let someone enter too much into my life, into our finances, into our family. And now I am afraid of what might happen. If something happens to me, please trust no one, investigate, fight, because I know you are stronger than you think. You always have been. I love you, and I'm sorry." The letter fell from my hands. Michael knew. On some level, he knew Sarah was dangerous, and he had tried to warn me. But he didn't arrive in time. I sat in his chair, surrounded by his books, by his scent that still impregnated the leather of the desk, and I cried. Not of sadness, but of closure. Because finally I could tell him, "It's done, my love. I did what I had to do. I defended you. I defended us. Now you can rest." And I felt for the first time since his death that he truly rested. That justice, although late, although incomplete, had arrived. And that I, a 68-year-old woman who had been underestimated, betrayed, almost murdered, I had won. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with dignity. And that, I discovered, was the most powerful victory of all. 6 months after the trial, one December morning, I woke up with a need I couldn't ignore. I had to see him, Skinny, the man who, without knowing it, had changed the course of everything, the man who, with a single desperate scream, had saved my life and unleashed justice. I hadn't seen him in a while. After the trial, I had gotten him a job at a small cleaning company. I had paid for a modest room in a small apartment complex. I had given him money for clothes, food, medicine, but I had never said thank you. Not really. Not in the way he deserved. I looked for him for 2 days. He wasn't at his job. He wasn't in his room. No one had seen him. And then, one cold afternoon, I found him, in the same place where it all began, the corner of my street, sitting against the wall with the same tattered clothes as always, despite everything I had given him. I approached slowly. He looked up and recognized me. "Mrs. Emily." "Skinny, I have been looking for you." He smiled with sadness. "I'm sorry, it's just, I couldn't stay in the room. I couldn't stay at the job. I don't fit there. The street is my home. It always has been." I sat beside him. I ignored the looks of the people passing by. I ignored the cold of the concrete. I ignored everything except him. "I didn't come to scold you. I came to thank you." He shook his head. "You have nothing to thank me for. I have everything to thank you for." I took an envelope out of my purse. "Without you, I would be dead. Without your scream, without your bravery, Sarah would have gotten away with it. That is why I want to give you this." I extended the envelope. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a check, $50,000. His eyes filled with tears. "Ma'am, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can, and you will, because you earned it. Do what you want with that money. Travel, rest, or donate it if you want. but take it because it is yours, because you saved a life. And that is priceless. He pressed the check against his chest, sobbing silently. It wasn't just my merit, he said through tears. It was your husband. He spoke to me that night. I stayed motionless. What? I dreamed him. Clearly, I was asleep on that corner, and suddenly I saw him, standing in front of me in a gray suit, smiling. He told me, "Take care of my wife. She is in danger. Don't let her start the car." And when I woke up, you were there, getting into the car, and I screamed. I don't know why. I just screamed. Tears rolled free down my cheeks. "Michael," I whispered, "he loved you very much, ma'am. You could feel that in the dream." Very much. I looked at the sky. The gray winter clouds moved slowly. The air smelled of approaching rain. "Thank you, Michael," I said in a low voice. "Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for sending me an angel when I needed it most." Skinny wiped his tears with the dirty sleeve of his jacket. "Ma'am, do you believe in those things? In dreams? That the dead watch over us?" I looked him in the eyes. Before, I didn't believe. I thought everything was chance, coincidences. But now I know there is something else. Something we cannot see, but is there, watching over us, guiding us. Michael sent me to you, and you saved me. That is not a coincidence. That is love. Love that transcends death. We sat there for a while longer in silence. Just two people connected by an impossible story, by a scream that changed everything. Finally, I stood up. "Take care, Skinny. And if you ever need anything at all, look for me. I will always be here for you." "Same to you, ma'am, although I don't have much to give." "You already gave me everything. You gave me my life." I walked back to my house, with my heart lighter than it had been in months. When I arrived, I sat on the terrace, the same place where Michael and I used to drink coffee on Sundays, where we planned trips we never took, where we dreamed of growing old together. And although he was no longer there physically, I felt his presence, in the wind that moved the leaves of the oak tree, in the song of the birds he loved so much, in the warmth of the sun that sneaked through the clouds. I closed my eyes and spoke. "You can rest now, my love. Everything is fine. Daniel is healing. Our grandson is protected. Sarah paid for what she did. And I am at peace. Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for not leaving me alone. Thank you for loving me so much that you found a way to save me, even from where you are. I love you. I will always love you until we meet again." I opened my eyes, and just at that moment, a white butterfly landed on the edge of the table. It stayed there, motionless, as if looking at me. And then it flew, high, towards the sky. I smiled because I knew it was him, saying goodbye, telling me he could finally rest. And I, a 68-year-old woman who had lost her husband, who had been betrayed by her family, who had been seconds away from dying, I had survived. Not just physically, but with my dignity intact, with my self-love recovered, with my truth defended. And although the road had been painful, although the scars still hurt, I knew something with absolute certainty. It was worth it, because the truth is always worth it, because justice, although slow, always arrives, and because a woman who decides to defend what is hers, what is right, what is fair, that woman is unstoppable. And I had just discovered that I had always been that woman. I just needed everything taken from me to realize it. My love finally left. This story touched my heart in a way I never imagined, because it reminded me that it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how many times you have been underestimated, it doesn't matter how much pain you carry, you always have the power to get up, to fight for your truth, to claim your dignity. And you? Have you ever had to face a family betrayal? Did you ever have to defend yourself when no one believed you? Leave me your comment. Tell me your story. Tell me where you are watching me from, because every story matters. Every voice counts. And together we form a community of people who don't give up. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it left you thinking like it, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to continue sharing real-life stories that remind you that you are never, never alone. Because true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And the most valuable thing you have is your dignity. Never, never sell it. See you in the next story. With love, your storyteller who never gives up.